The stars shimmered against the infinite. Blackness as the Earth exploration. Vessel Horizon drifted at the edge of. Human-controlled Space Commander Allen. Pierce stood tall on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. After 3 weeks of waiting, the alien ships had finally arrived there. Hailing us, sir, said Communications Officer Patricia Miller, her fingers dancing across the console. Open the channel, Allen replied, straightening his uniform. This was humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. History would remember this moment. The screen flickered, revealing a tall, gray-skinned being with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its mouth was a thin line that barely moved as it spoke in a deep, resonant voice. I am High Lord Vex, Thor of the Zegar Imperium. You have entered territory claimed by the Eternal Empire. Allen stepped forward. I am Commander Allen Pierce of Earth. We come in peace and seek friendship between our peoples. The alien made a sound like grinding metal. Allen realized it was laughing. Peace. The Zegar Imperium does not make peace. We conquer. We rule. Lesser species served. Before Allen could respond, Patricia shouted, Sir, 2 colony ships just dropped out of FTL behind us. The Horizon wasn't supposed to be meeting civilian vessels. The colony ships must have navigated to the wrong coordinates. Allen opened his mouth to warn them, but it was too late. Green beams lashed out from the seer vessel. The first colony ship exploded instantly. The second managed to send a single message before a 2 burst into flames. Get us out of here, Allen ordered. Maximum speed and send a distress call to Earth Defense Command. The Horizon turned and accelerated away from the alien ships. They didn't pursue. They didn't need to. Their message had been delivered. Admiral Susan Blackwood was reviewing fleet deployments when the emergency call came through her office at Earth Defense Command. Instantly transformed. Screens descending from the ceiling and displaying the incoming transmission. She watched in horror as the colony ships were destroyed. When the recording ended, she sat in silence for a full minute. Get me the Security Council, she finally said to her eye assistant. 6 hours later, Susan stood before the Earth Security Council as they watched the Sing footage. The room was deadly quiet when the lights came back on. The Zegar ambassador has arrived, announced the Council President. He demands to address us immediately. Susan took her place behind the Council as the ambassador entered. High Lord Vexer was even more imposing in person, towering over the human guards who escorted him. Your explorers have learned what happens to those who enter Imperium space, Vex Thor said without preamble. Now you will learn your place in the galaxy. The ambassador activated a small device. A holographic map appeared showing hundreds of star systems. This is the Zegar Imperium. We control over 2,000 worlds. Your species has barely managed to colonize 10. He pointed a long finger. At Earth you have 2 options: surrender your planet and all colonies to become a vassal state of the Imperium, or face extinction. You have 48 hours to decide. After Vex Thor left, chaos erupted in the council chamber. We can't fight an empire that size. We can't surrender either. What options do we have? Susan stepped forward. Council members, I request permission to speak. The room quieted. They've shown their nature. If we surrender, they'll still destroy us, just more slowly. I propose we unite all Earth's military forces and fight. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in human history, all nations agreed to form a single military command, the Terran Defense Alliance. Susan was appointed Supreme Commander. As the Council filed out, the President handed Her a sealed envelope. This is your directive, Admiral. Operation Phoenix May. God help us all. Susan looked at the envelope, then at the star map still glowing where Vex Thor had left it. They Zigar thought they knew humanity. They thought humans would bow in fear. They were wrong. 15 years had passed since first contact, 15 years of war, loss, and retreat. The outer colonies had fallen one by one. Now the Zigar blockades surrounded Earth's solar system there. Massive ships forming a wall that no human vessel could penetrate, or so they thought, deep within the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, inside a hollowed-out space rock designated Boz Olympus. Admiral Susan Blackwood stood before a 3D map of the galaxy. Her once dark hair had turned silver and lines creased her face, but her eyes burned with the same determination they had 15 years ago. Status report, she said to the officers gathered around the table. The evacuation is at 92% completion, said Colonel Linda Warren. Another 3 months, and we'll have moved everyone to Haven. Haven was a star system 70 light years from Earth. The Zigar had no idea it existed. The system had been discovered just before the war and kept secret for 15 years. Ships had been quietly slipping through the blockade, carrying Earth's population to safety. The Jupiter shipyards report final assembly on the last 500 vessels, added Major Paul Green. They'll be ready in 3 weeks. Susan nodded. And the new technology? Kevin Walsh, a tall man with grease-stained hands, stepped forward. The shield generators are fully operational. We've installed them on all ships. They can absorb 5 times more energy than anything the Zigar have ever seen. My team has completed the quantum disruptor network, said Dr. Olivia Martinez, pushing her glasses up. Her nose, once activated, it will cut off all Zigar communications between their fleets. They'll be isolated from each other. Susan allowed herself a small smile. For 15 years, the Zigar had believed they were crushing humanity. They didn't know that each battle, each retreat had been calculated. The humans fought just hard enough to make the aliens believed they were winning while hiding their true strength. Colonel Dawson, what about the intelligence mission? Susan asked. Frank Dawson stepped into the light. His face bore scars from countless covered operations. Complete success, Admiral. We have the schematics for every class of Imperium ship, the locations of all their major bases, and most importantly, he paused, a rare grin forming on his face. We know where their home world is, and it's not as well defended as they want everyone to believe. Susan turned back to the galactic map with a gesture. She zoomed in on a star system near the center. The Zigar home world glowed red. For 15 years they thought we were losing, she said quietly. For 15 years we've let them believe Earth was our last stronghold, that breaking our blockade would end humanity's resistance. She turned to face her officers. The Zigar don't know that we've built over 5,000 ships in the hidden shipyards of Jupiter. They don't know we've developed technology beyond their understanding. And they certainly don't know that we've evacuated nearly our entire population to a safe haven beyond their reach. Susan tapped a button. The map changed, showing the location of their hidden fleet. It was massive, far larger than anything humanity had ever built before. Operation Phoenix was never about defending Earth. It was about letting the enemy think they've won while we prepared for a counterattack they could never imagine. She looked at each officer in turn. In 30 days we launch. We won't attack their blockade. We won't try to save Earth. We'll strike directly at the heart of their empire while they celebrate their Victory over humanity, we will bring the fight to their doorstep. Kevin raised his hand. But Admiral, what about the people still on Earth? Susan's face hardened. The Zigar will find an empty planet. The last transport leaves tomorrow. Earth will be abandoned, but not forgotten. She looked once more at the map, at the red dot that marked the enemy home world. The Zigar wanted total destruction. We're going to give it to them. Lieutenant Gregory Wells crouched behind a broken wall on the dusty surface of Mars. His armor was scratched and dented. Nearby 20 soldiers waited for his signal. They were the last visible human military force in the solar system. That was exactly the plan. Zigar patrol coming in from the east, whispered Sergeant Judy Miller through the comm. 3 hover tanks and about 30-foot soldiers. Gregory checked his weapon. Remember the mission. Make them think we're desperate. Make them think we're the last ones left. His team nodded. For weeks they had been fighting a Lowe's battle on Mars, but this wasn't a real last stand. It was a show, a carefully planned distraction. Now Gregory shouted, and his soldiers opened fire. The battle was fierce, but controlled. The humans fell back step by step, making the aliens work for every small victory. Gregory saw 2 of his soldiers fall. The losses were real but necessary to make the deception work. High above Mars, Captain Nancy wrote. Rodriguez guided her stealth ship through the Zigar fleet. Her vessel was invisible to their scanners thanks to technology developed by Dr. Martinez. Approaching the command ship, she whispered, though no one could hear her. In space, her mission was critical. The small devices in her cargo hold would allow humanity to track every Zigar ship in the system. They had to be placed precisely. Nancy maneuvered carefully alongside the massive alien flagship. Working quickly, she attached the first quantum beacon to its hull. Then she moved to the next ship and the next on Mars. Gregory's team retreated into the old human colony dome. The Zigar forces surrounded them, cutting off all escape routes. This is your final warning. Boom. The voice of the Zigar commander. Surrender now. Gregory looked at his remaining soldiers. They all knew their role in this grand deception. We surrender, he transmitted. We have no more weapons, no more ships, no more hope. The Zigar troops moved in, cautiously taking the humans prisoner. Gregory allowed himself to be bound, watching as the aliens searched the colony for hidden weapons or traps. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. The real weapons were far away, preparing for a strike that would change the galaxy forever. In the Zigar command ship, Ording, Mars Supreme Commander ZVE recorded a message for the Imperium. The human resistance is broken. Their final military outpost has fallen. The species has been conquered, as is the right and destiny of the Zigar Imperium. The message was broadcast across all Imperial channels on thousands of worlds. Aliens watched as ZVC declared victory over humanity. We will establish occupation forces on Earth and the human colonies. The rest of our fleet will return to deal with the rebellion in the Orion sector. Zivik ended the transmission and turned to his officers. Begin withdrawing. Our main fleet leave only enough ships to maintain control of this system. As the huge Zigar ships began to depart, Nancy completed her mission. Every major vessel now carried a quantum beacon. Dr. Martins would know exactly where each ship was at all times on Mars. Gregory and his captured soldiers were loaded onto prison transports. The Zigar guards laughed and joked, celebrating their victory. You fought well for primitives, one guard told Gregory, but no species has ever defeated the Imperium Gregory said nothing. He just watched through a small window as the Zegar fleet began to disperse, leaving only a fraction of their ships behind. Phase 1 of Operation Phoenix was complete. The enemy believed they had won. They were returning to their normal duties, spreading their forces thin across the galaxy, and they had no idea what was coming for them. In the darkness of the transport ship, Gregory allowed himself a small smile. The Zegar thought this was the end of the story. It was only the beginning. The fleet gathered at Haven was unlike anything humanity had ever built. 5,000 ships of various sizes filled the space around the small blue planet that now held most of Earth's population. The ships gleamed with new technology, weapons the Zegar had never seen. Admiral Susan Blackwood stood on the bridge of the flagship Phoenix. Rising officers worked quietly at their stations, preparing for the largest military operation in human history. Large screens showed the faces of all fleet captains watching and waiting for her words. Susan took a deep breath. For 15 years we have prepared for this day, she began. The Zegar believe they have conquered us. They believe humanity is broken, our spirit crushed. Today we prove them wrong. The captains nodded, their faces serious and determined. Our mission is not revenge, our mission is justice. The Imperium has destroyed countless civilizations. Today we end their reign of terror. Susan turned to Dr. Olivia Martinez, who stood ready at a special console. Activate the quantum disruption network. Olivia pressed a sequence of buttons on screens throughout the fleet. The status of Zegar communications appeared one by one. The connections between their fleets turned red, then black. Disruption complete. Admiral Olivia reported all Zegar fleets are now isolated from one another. They cannot coordinate a response. Susan nodded. This was the moment they had planned for years. The Zegar fleet was scattered across the galaxy, thinking the war was over. Captain Daniel, Foster, your strike team will lead the assault on the Zegar home world. Daniel's face appeared on the main screen. He commanded the most advanced battle group in the fleet. We're ready, Admiral, he said. His ships were already moving into jump formation. Lieutenant Lisa Keller, your ground forces will deploy once the orbital defenses are neutralized. Lisa saluted from another screen behind her. Soldiers in advanced powered armor prepared for battle. All ships prepare for simultaneous jump. Susan ordered. Our target is not Earth, not our colonies. Our target is the heart of the Imperium itself. The fleet began to move, forming up for the faster than light jump. The coordinates were set for the Zegar home world, the center of their vast empire. This is not a fight for survival anymore, Susan told her crew. This is a fight for the future. Jump in 3, 2, 1. 5,000 human ships vanished from Haven on the Zegar home world. Supreme Commander ZVC was addressing the Imperial Council when the alarms began. What is happening? He demanded. An officer rushed in, his 4 eyes wide with fear. Commander, human ships have appeared in orbit, thousands of them. Impossible, ZVC shouted. The humans are defeated. Their fleet was destroyed. The building shook as explosions lit up the sky. On the display screens, Zegar defense platforms were being systematically destroyed by weapons they had never seen before. Captain Daniel Foster directed the orbital assault with calm precision. His ships formed a perfect attack pattern, targeting the defense stations first, then the shipyard's orbital defenses at 20% and falling. Reported his tactical officer. The Zegar fleet in orbit is attempting to organize a Counterattack, they can't communicate with each other, Daniel said. Target their command ships, clear the way for our ground forces within hours. The space above the Zigar home world belonged to humanity. Transport ships descended to the surface carrying Lieutenant Lisa Keller's troops. The Zigar had never seen human soldiers in advanced powered armor. They had never faced an enemy who could move so quickly, strike so hard. The Imperial Palace was surrounded before they could organize their defenses. In his command center, ZVC frantically tried to call for reinforcements. His messages went nowhere. The communication network was silent on every screen in the palace, on every Zigar communication device across the planet. Admiral Susan Blackwood's face appeared. Your empire is built on the suffering of others, she said. You chose extinction for humanity. We choose mercy for you. Surrender now, and your people will live. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Imperium Council chamber was filled with panic. 20 Zigar leaders shouted over each other as reports of human ships appearing over more and more worlds poured in. The Grand Marble Hall, once a place of order and control, now buzzed with fear. Counselor Fira, the oldest member, slammed his four-fingered hand on the table. Silence. This chaos helps nothing. The room quieted as screens around them showed human ships in orbit around 12 Imperial core worlds. No one had expected this. No one had prepared for it. We must surrender immediately, Vexera said. These humans have technology we cannot match. They appeared at our home world without warning. War Minister Krabs's gray skin flushed purple with rage stood up. Never. The Imperium does not surrender. We should use the forbidden weapons, the planet killers. Several counselors gasped. The forbidden weapons had not been used in 1,000 years. They were planet destroyers, capable of reducing worlds to ash. And target was asked Thera. Their home world. They've already abandoned Earth. Our scouts report it's empty. On another screen, they watched as 3 more Zigar fleets were overwhelmed by human ships. The reports were the same everywhere. The human vessels had shields that absorbed energy, weapons and weapons that cut through Imperium defenses like they weren't there. The Krell have broken their alliance with us, reported Security Chief Trenol, entering the chamber with a data pad. The Vossat Confederation as well. They say the Imperium has finished. This news sent another wave of panic through the council. The vassal races sensed weakness and were breaking away. Listen to me, Dren continued, his voice rising above the noise. These humans have been among us for years. My agents have discovered they're spies embedded in every level of our government, our military. They know everything about us. The room fell silent as the implication sank, and the humans hadn't just built ships in secret. They had studied the Imperium from within, learning all its weaknesses. At that moment, all the screens in the chamber changed. Admiral Susan Blackwood's face appeared calm and determined. Members of the Imperium Council, she said, your empire covers thousands of worlds built through conquest and subjugation. You believe this made you strong. The counselor stared at the human woman who had orchestrated their downfall. It made you vulnerable. Your empire is too large to defend. Your vassal races hate you, and now your fleets cannot communicate with each other. War Minister Krabs stood. Again, we will never surrender to primitives. We will. Susan continued as if he hadn't spoken. Our forces now control your capital and 12 core worlds. We have disabled your main fleets, but unlike you, we do not seek extinction. The Screens changed again, showing images of Zigar civilians being treated by human medical teams, children receiving food from human soldiers. Your empire was built on conquest, Susan said. Ours will be built on cooperation. All worlds of the former Imperium will be given independence and the choice to join a new federation as equals. The counselor looked at each other in confusion. This was not how conquests were supposed to end. You have 1 hour to surrender formally, Susan concluded, or we will continue our campaign to liberate every world in your empire. When her face disappeared from the screens, the council erupted again, but now a new sound could be heard outside. Cheering. The ordinary citizens of the capital were celebrating in the streets. Fira moved to a window and looked out of the crowds. Many were waving makeshift white flags. They welcomed their conquerors, he said softly, because the humans offer something we never did. What is that? Asked Drenal. Freedom, Thera replied. The Imperium, as we knew it, is over. Outside, human ships continued to arrive in the skies of the Zigar home world, not as destroyers, but as liberators. While the Imperium Council debated surrender, Admiral Kilo was not ready to accept defeat. His warship slipped away from the battle over the Zigar home world, heading for a secret moon base known only to the highest military leaders. The base, called Terminus, orbited a dead moon in a forgotten star system. It housed weapons too terrible to use even for the conquering Zigar, weapons that had been banned for 1,000 years. Keloff landed his ship and rushed past the fog guards. They knew better than to question an admiral, especially one with rage burning in all 4 of his eyes. Open the vault, he ordered. The base commander, Admiral, those weapons are forbidden. The commander protested weakly. The Imperium is falling. Kells off his eye will not let aliens who were throwing spears a few centuries ago destroy everything we built deep in the secret base. A massive door slid open. Inside were sleek black missiles, each capable of destroying a planet. They had not been used since the early days of the Imperium, when whole worlds had been reduced to ash. As examples to others, prepare all of them for launch. Kilo commanded. Target their colony worlds first, then Earth. Let the humans watch their precious home world die, even if they've abandoned it. Back at the human fleet, engineer Kevin Walsh noticed unusual energy readings on his monitor. He had been tracking all Zigar communications and ships since the attack began. Admiral, he called to Susan Blackwood, I'm detecting strange power signatures from a moon base in the Terminus system. Nothing in our intel mentioned this place. Susan studied the readings. Those energy patterns match theoretical planet killer weapons. We suspected they might exist, but hoped the Zigar wouldn't resort to using them. She turned to her communications officer. Alert all ships and get me Captain Foster immediately on the Zigar home world. Captain Daniel Foster was overseeing the peaceful transition of power when he received the urgent message. Captain, we've located a weapons platform preparing to launch planet killers. You're closest to the Terminus system. Stop them at all costs. Daniel wasted no time. His strike team boarded their ships and jumped to the coordinates they read to see 5 black missiles already launching from the moon base. Those are heading for Earth, Daniel's tactical officer announced. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. All ships intercept those missiles, Daniel ordered. Lieutenant Amy Patterson, can you hack their guidance systems? Amy, the fleet's best computer specialist, was already working at our station. Their security is complex, but I think I can access them. I Need to get closer as Daniel's ships raced. After the missiles, Admiral Blackwood contacted Kevin Walsh. Kevin, I need you to work with Patterson, find a way to stop those weapons. Kevin nodded and immediately began coordinating with Amy. The missile's guidance systems have a similar architecture to their communication networks. If we modify our quantum disruptor, Daniel's fastest ships managed to catch up with the missiles. Amy and Kevin worked frantically to hack into their control systems. I've got it, Amy shouted. Finally, I can't shut them down, but I can change their course. Where can we send them that won't harm anyone? Kevin asked. Empty space far from any planets or shipping lanes, Daniel decided. Amy's fingers flew over her console. The missile suddenly changed direction, veering away from their path toward Earth. On his base, Admiral Kilo watched in disbelief as his weapons turned away. How are they doing this? The planet killers detonated harmlessly in the void between star systems. The explosion was visible as a bright flash of light across hundreds of light years. Spectacular but harmless light show. Daniel's strike team surrounded the moonbase. Admiral Kilo, he transmitted, your weapons have failed. Surrender your base immediately. Inside the vault, Kilo stood among the remaining planet killers. His last desperate attempt to save the Imperium had failed. The humans had countered even these, the most destructive weapons in the galaxy. For the first time in his life, the proud Admiral felt something new, fear of what would happen next. Captain Daniel Foster led the team that captured Admiral Keloth. The Zigar officer was brought to the Phoenix Rising in chains, his once proud uniform torn and dirty. He expected execution. The Zigar would have killed any enemy who dared to attack their home world. Instead, he found himself in a plain room with a table and 2 chairs. Daniel sat across from him, no weapons visible. Why am I still alive? Keloth asked, his voice a low growl. Humans don't kill prisoners, Daniel replied simply. We want information, not revenge. For hours, Daniel questioned the Admiral about the Imperium's history, its structure, and its secrets. At first, Keloth refused to speak, but as the hours passed, something strange happened. The human showed no anger, no hatred, just patient curiosity. Finally, Keloth broke. You don't understand what you've done, he said. The Imperium is not what you think. Explain it to me, Daniel said quietly. The Zigar are not the founders of the Imperium. We conquered it. Daniel leaned forward. What do you mean? 5,000 years ago there was a peaceful federation of worlds. This region of space, the Zigar were a minor species from the outer rim. We discovered ancient weapons technology and used it to overthrow the Federation. We rewrote history to make ourselves the eternal rulers. This revelation was immediately reported to Admiral Blackwood. She ordered Dr. Olivia Martin is to search the data they had collected from the Sethers. Olivia worked through the night, decoding files that had been hidden for millennia. By morning, she had confirmation. It's true, she told Susan. I found the original records. The Zigar conquered a peaceful federation called the Stellar Commonwealth. They destroyed most of the records, but not all. Susan immediately called a meeting with representatives from the conquered worlds who had already joined the human side. She shared what they had discovered. The Imperium has been lying to you for thousands of years, she told them. You were once part of a peaceful federation before the Zigar came on the Zigar home world. Lieutenant Lisa Keller made an even more startling discovery. Her team was studying ancient temples that predated the Imperium. Admiral, she Reported to Blackwood, we found genetic records here. Human DNA matches patterns from the Oran Federation species. What are you saying? Susan asked, though she already suspected the answer. Humans aren't just random aliens who developed independently. Lisa explained, we're descendants of the original Federation who escaped to Earth when the Zigar attacked thousands of years ago. Our ancestors fled so far that the Zigar couldn't find them. The implications were enormous. Humans hadn't just defeated an alien empire, they had reclaimed their ancestral place in the galaxy. Captain Nancy Rodriguez was tasked with spreading this information. Her ships broadcast the recovered historical records to all Imperial worlds. The truth spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On dozens of planets, populations that had lived under Zigar rule for generations suddenly learned the truth. Their ancestors had been free members of a peaceful federation. The humans weren't conquerors, they were returning relatives, come to free them from Zigar oppression. Rebellions erupted everywhere. Imperial governors were overthrown. Zigar military bases surrendered to local forces. The Imperium built on lies crumbled in days. In her quarters, Susan Blackwood reviewed the ancient star maps they had discovered. They showed Earth clearly, marked as a distant colony of the original Federation. We came home, she whispered to herself. After 5,000 years we came home. The Phoenix had not just risen from the ashes of defeat, it had reclaimed its rightful place among the stars, bringing truth to a galaxy built on lies. And the people of a thousand worlds welcomed their long-lost cousins with open arms. 6 months after the human fleet arrived at the Zigar home, world representatives from a 100 formerly conquered worlds gathered in the grand hall of what had once been the Imperial Palace. The marble walls remained, but the symbols of Zigar rule had been replaced with a simple emblem, circle of stars surrounding a phoenix. Admiral Susan Blackwood stood at the center of the hall. Her uniform was now white instead of military gray. Around her were the leaders who had helped transform the galaxy. Today, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room, we signed the Galactic Concordat. Not a document of conquest, but one of cooperation. She looked the diverse beings gathered before her. Some had scales, others fur, some breath, different air mixtures, but genetic studies had confirmed that all shared a common ancestor with humans. 5,000 years ago, the stellar commonwealth was destroyed by conquest. Today we rebuild it as equals. One by one, the representatives came forward to sign the agreement. Even a small group of Zigar, those who had rejected their species violent past, joined the new federation. In another part of the former Imperial capital, engineer Kevin Walsh unveiled his newest creation to a crowd of scientists from dozens of worlds. The Quantum Gateway Network will connect all member worlds, he explained, pointing to a glowing holographic display. Travel that once took weeks will take hours. The scientists applauded. Already the technology humans had developed in secret was being shared, improving life across the galaxy. On a training field outside the city, Lieutenant Lisa Keller watched as soldiers from 20 different species practiced working together. They wore armor with the Phoenix emblem. You're not conquering armies anymore, she told them. You're peacekeepers. Your job is to protect, not control. It was a new concept for many of them. Under the Imperium, soldiers had existed only to expand territory and fresh resistance. Now they were learning a different purpose in orbit above the planet. Captain Daniel Foster welcomed representatives from previously unknown species onto his ship. The news of the Imperium's fall had spread beyond its borders, and new civilizations were reaching out to join the Federation. "We have room for everyone at the table," he told the visitors, "as long as you come in peace." One of the alien diplomats, a tall being with silver skin, seemed confused. "You destroyed the most powerful empire in the galaxy. You could rule everything. Why share power?" Daniel smiled. "Because that's not who we are. We came to end an empire, not become one in a newly established center for galactic history." Dr. Olivia Martinez opened the doors to an exhibition of artifacts recovered from the original Commonwealth era. "We've recovered only fragments of our shared past," she told the visitors who filled the halls, "but each day brings new discoveries. Our goal is to restore the knowledge that was almost lost forever." Near the end of the day, all the leaders gathered again as Admiral Blackwood prepared to depart. The Phoenix Rising would lead the first joint human-alien expedition beyond the borders of the former Imperium, exploring regions no one had visited in thousands of years. "We came prepared for total destruction," Susan said in her final address, "but found a galaxy waiting to be rebuilt. Humanity's true strength was never our weapons, but our capacity for both justice and mercy." She looked at the faces around her, no longer enemies or strangers, but allies and friends. The Zigar thought they knew humanity. They thought we were weak because we valued peace. They were wrong. We are strong precisely because we prefer peace, but we'll fight with everything we have when necessary. As the Phoenix Rising lifted off, headed for unexplored space, a memorial was unveiled on Mars. It honored Lieutenant Gregory Wells and his team, who had staged the last stand that fooled the Imperium. The inscription read simply, "They made the enemy believe they had won. In doing so, they saved not just humanity, but the galaxy itself." The Phoenix had not just risen, it had transformed the stars,